welcome to Street Folktales. She met him in the softest part of her life, when everything felt like it was finally settling into place. Nia was 28, steady, not rich but secure. Her small boutique in the heart of the city kept her comfortable, and she'd bought a modest home after years of sacrifice. There was joy in her routines, morning tea with lemongrass, humming to her plants as she opened the shop, and watching the street vendors set up every day. She wasn't searching for love when Kola walked into her shop. He asked about a dress for his sister, said she liked bold colors and couldn't decide what to buy. He didn't look unsure, he looked confident, relaxed, as if the whole thing was part of a plan. He listened closely when she recommended something floral, nodded, smiled like he appreciated her taste. He returned the next week with takeaway coffee, claiming he owed her one for helping him win sister points. It began gently. A few more visits. Then walks after closing. He had stories, big ideas, wild ambition. Said he was a startup guy, working on something major. She was used to calm, but Kola brought fire. He was the kind of man who made you feel like the world was late to discover his greatness. She let herself be charmed. Within 6 months, he moved in. She didn't plan it. He started staying over more frequently until one day, he just didn't leave. He didn't bring much, just clothes, a few gadgets, and a suitcase full of promises. It was exciting at first. He was attentive, thoughtful, filled her mornings with warm kisses and whispered optimism. He talked often about their future, where they'd travel, how they'd build an empire. It was only after a while that she noticed the imbalance. First, it was little things, forgetting to replace groceries, skipping bills, saying his money was tied up in business. When she offered to help temporarily, he kissed her hand like she was saving him from drowning. She gave, and he took, smoothly. Then it became routine. He needed a small loan to finish his pitch deck. Then his laptop needed an upgrade. His cousin had an emergency. He started borrowing with ease. Nia had always been generous. But the taking became constant, and the returning never came. Her savings began to thin. Her shop, once thriving, had a slow season, and she covered the gaps by pulling from her house account. Kola always promised reimbursement was coming. He wasn't lazy, he insisted. He was working, planning, building. It just wasn't visible yet. When her mother fell ill, Nia had to pay for treatment out of her dwindling funds. Kola stayed distant. He said he didn't want to get in the way of family stress. When she cried after a long call with the doctor, he nodded like he understood, then asked if she could cover his car repair. The audacity stunned her, but she said yes. The breaking point came months later, not through violence or screaming, but silence. She came home early one afternoon to find him laughing on a video call. He wore no shirt, held wine in one hand, and was speaking softly to a woman whose face filled the screen. She didn't confront him. She studied him. Every lie he told, she logged. Every expense he claimed was for them, she tracked. She reopened her old budgeting app, started saving again in secret. She stopped discussing her shop's finances. When he asked, she smiled, said things were looking up. She made herself small, quiet, agreeable, so he wouldn't suspect. She watched how easily he manipulated, how he called her cold when she said no, how he talked about loyalty like it was an excuse for obedience. When she bought a cheaper brand of cereal, he said, "Don't live like we're poor. That's not attractive." He still had no job. still made no income, still believed he was entitled to the best. He hated being questioned. Said it meant she didn't believe in him. That was the weapon, guilt. He never raised his hand, never shouted. He just knew how to turn her strength into shame. He drained without violence. But it was still a kind of theft. The boutique was barely holding on. She couldn't afford to lose more. So she stopped giving. Quietly, she began pulling back. She said the landlord raised rent, that she had to put more into inventory. She told him her card had limits now, and the bank was being strict. She acted worried, apologetic. He began to shift. His request turned colder, less patient. He sulked when she couldn't cover his needs. Then, one night, he screamed. "Do you think I'm using you?" he shouted. "You think I don't see how you've changed? You used to care. You used to understand. Now you're acting like a bitter woman. Just like your mother." That broke something real. Her mother had given her everything. And even while battling illness, still called just to pray for her. To compare her to bitterness felt like desecration. She didn't yell back. She didn't need to. The next day, she went to her. She had prepared well. Months of documentation, screenshots, transfers, financial logs. She had proof of everything. Not for a criminal case, he hadn't stolen. She had given it. But she wanted him out. Cleanly. Legally. She needed protection. The lawyer helped her file for partition of assets. Since they weren't married officially, just cohabiting, she had grounds to evict. Her lawyer sent him a formal notice. Kola laughed when he got it. "You think you can just throw me out," he said. "You think you're untouchable because you paid for things? Without me, you wouldn't have half the ambition you have now." She said nothing. He didn't know she'd already changed the locks on her boutique. That her accounts were secure, passwords reset. That the bank statements had been quietly reorganized. She'd been invisible for months, preparing for this. When he refused to leave, she gave him a deadline, legally backed. When he refused again, the police escorted him out. The day he left, he spit on the ground and said, "You'll regret this." But Nia stood in the doorway, calm. For the first time, she saw him clearly, not the man she thought he was, not the one he pretended to be. Just a shell. Empty of purpose. Built on ego. He left behind clutter. Old cologne, unpaid bills, and promises written in air. She threw out everything. Deep cleaned. Burned sage. Played music at full volume. And when the silence came, it was beautiful. She went back to work. Built slowly. Rebranded the shop. Reclaimed her name. Started journaling again. Her laughter returned, not all at once, but enough. It took months before she told anyone the full story. When she did, her friends cried. Not because of what she endured, but because of how she rose. He tried to call once. Just one message, "Hey. I was thinking about us. Can we talk?" She didn't reply. She didn't need to. What he'd taken, she had reclaimed. What he broke, she rebuilt. Not in his absence, but in her own presence. And that, finally, was hers to keep.